Our last session for the day is called Competing on Home Soil, the Competitive Advantage. And we're very privileged today to have Gideon with us and Jeff Payne to share their strategies for comparing for Vancouver 2010. Gideon is a very decorated Paralympic athlete. She had a career initially in summer sports as a goalball player, and she won gold medals at both Sydney and Athens. And then she changed from the court to the ski slopes, and she has done extremely well at 2010, winning medals in all the events she entered. She entered 5 events, and she won 1 gold, 3 silver, and a bronze medal. So congratulations. And also with us is Jeff Payne. Jeff is certainly one of the most distinguished bobsled players, or skeleton. That's right. He's on bobsled tracks. Is that right? As a skeleton person. Okay, that's where it is. Arguably one of the most accomplished athletes in the history of Canadian skeleton program, Jeff Payne has also solidified himself as one of the top athletes in the world, having won nearly everything available in the sport. Jeff is a multiple World Cup champion, a 2-time world champion, and a 3-time Olympian. And in 2006, he won an Olympic silver medal. Since 2006, Jeff has continued his climb to the top with international standings, with top 10 finishes on in the World Cup circuit, heading into the 2010 Olympic Games. Jeff ended the session with a 9th place finish at the Olympics and recorded some of the fastest speeds ever on the skeleton. It's hard to believe that with 1 broken foot, 2 broken ribs, 4 black eyes, 1 concussion, and 1 million scrapes and bruises, that Jeff hasn't switched over to wheelchair curling. So I'm going to be talking to him about that. So please welcome Jeff and Gideon.
Hi everyone.
Now is my time to shine.
All Canadian eyes were on Gideon.
I'm pretty happy and proud. I set a podium 5 times and I did it.
Grab hold and own it.
Representing Canada, Gideon by Lindsay DeBoon.
I remember I was 4 years old and I was watching TV with my grandparents, and it was the Olympic on TV, and I told my grandpa, that's what I want to do when I'm an adult. And of course they will start laughing, right? So you can't, you're blind. And I say, well, we'll see.
Into the tuck position and across the line.
First place by 3.36 seconds.
And a pretty good time.
I don't see like failure or not doing it as an option.
When your moment comes, grab hold and own it. When your time comes, don't postpone it. When others doubt and out, you don't condone it.
I got information for the Blind Federation in Quebec, and it's there they told me about the sport of goalball. Fall in love with the sport and make the national team. Did have the chance to go to 2 Paralympic, 1 in Sydney, 1 in Athens, and come back with 2 gold medals from those games. And 2005, after another concussion, I did not make the team that year. Totally changed life, moved to Alberta, learned my English, was ready for a new start. I did always love to ski when I was kids.
Now Foray is back, competing for Canada in a winter sport.
Because I love the speed, I love the adrenaline it's giving you. It's just unbelievable sensation. When I crashed after the downhill race at Paralympic, I got a gold medal, but I did not stop properly after the finish line, so I injured my arms and got concussion. The second day, I was crying. I'm not sure I can do that. It's quite crazy, but failure or not start was not an option for me. Trained for 4 years, I cannot give up at that point. So I'm very happy and pleased that I did push myself to that point and still managed to get 2 more silver. I think people who did inspire me in my life are just regular people. I'm amazed and impressed by some of my friends that did survive and go through cancer and was still training or be an athlete or working. They don't complain on their poor little me. They're people who totally inspire me. Believe in yourself, never listen to anyone who will tell you you can't do that, it's not accessible for you or anything like that. And we have to follow our heart, never give up, always believe in yourself. my biggest fear? I'll be failure.
Truth be told, yourself is your toughest opponent. When your moment comes, grab hold and own it.
Vivian here is a member of Team Canada, and you are a visually impaired skier.
Yes.
Okay, Vivian, I did the little run, going very slow. I was terrified.
You need big balls to do that, dude.
Love it.
It did haunt me for a good few days. Go back in my hotel, I think I saw national TV big balls. I'm like, oh, yeah. It was good, it was Rick Mercer. Would you like to start?
Sure, I can start. I'm going to stay on topic and then get a little bit off topic here probably, so bear with. Basically, it's my opinion, and it has been through my whole career, that there's nothing harder than winning at home. And I think the perception out there is that it's harder because there's all this pressure and there's more people watching and there's more expectation. And I think that's not actually true. Because I think within all of us, there's enough pressure and expectation at every single race we go to that being at home, there might be a little bit more because that you're supposed to win. But I think that mostly the reason it's harder is because, for me, being at home in Calgary on the track there, it was really, really easy to get complacent and to think that, oh, I don't have to focus quite as hard here, or I don't need to take that training run this week, or whatever, and just get a little bit complacent because I knew the track so well. I'd gone down it literally thousands of times, and I'm racing against people who have been down it 20 times. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, well, even if I'm only 80% today, I'm still going to kick their butt, which isn't reality, because point two to that is when I'm at home, the entire rest of the world is gunning to beat me. And they're trying a little bit harder to beat me. So they're giving 110%. If I don't give my 100%, it's the hardest place to win, I think, is at home. So that's about all I'm going to say about home soil. But I think that there's only two outcomes out of a race. There's only two things that can possibly happen. You're either going to win or you're going to lose. Now, losing is kind of an ugly word we always shy away from, but essentially there's the gold medal and there's everybody else. So we all go into a games, into a race, into an Olympics, into whatever. We all go there wanting to win the gold medal. So if that doesn't happen, and the honest place or the honest statement about that is that there is only one. So odds are you're not going to win. That's reality. I mean, let's call it like it is. So it's very, 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 very rare to retire or exit sport or to exit a games experience with a gold medal. It's extremely rare. And a lot of people that do exit with the gold medal don't necessarily retire. They continue on in their career. And they get to a place where basically our careers end because we get injured, we get old, we're not good enough anymore, we don't make the team, we lose our desire, or we have to quit because we don't have the finances for it. Those are really the reasons why we leave sport. It's, as I said, it's extremely rare to leave on top as the best and say, you know what, I have my gold medal, I'm good, I'm out, I'm done, thank you very much. It almost never happens. So when you do leave sport for whatever reason, odds are you're going to have a really hard time mentally and emotionally. And I've gone through this for the last 7 months. I kind of did all those things. I got too old. I lost my passion for the sport. I got injured, and I didn't get the result I wanted. So I kind of had like all of them. So it's been a very painful, emotionally trying time for the last 7 months. I've been a lot of reflection and tried to figure out how could I have done it better. You know, how could I have exited sport and not gotten so depressed and lost kind of my enthusiasm for life. And it comes down to, I've had a couple conversations with people in the last couple of days about if I had to do it all over again, what would I do? And I think one of the things that is really key, or would have been really key for me, is to have a better financial plan for after the games. I think as athletes we get really focused on what do I need today, what do I need tomorrow, what do I need this winter or this summer so that I can compete in my sport. And we tend to kind of mortgage our futures on today, which is fine, except that in year 5 of the quadrennial, I call it year 5, it makes it really hard, especially when you're not going back into training, you're not re-entering a new quadrennial. So when you do get to year 5, it's very hard. So if I had to do it all over again, what would I do? Well, I wrote here in my notes, I would spend year 1 and year 2 working really, really hard to secure a financial situation, a positive financial situation for myself in year 5. Because while the money now is important so I can compete in my sport, the money is equally as important when you leave sport, because, as I say, statistics show you are going to get depressed, you are going to lose focus, you are going to lose direction in your life. That's just, you can't come out of such a narrow, focused, high-intensity environment into this amazingly incredible, great, big opportunity world and not feel a little bit terrified and a little bit lost. It's just, I don't know anyone who's done it well, and I've talked to a lot of athletes. I'm sure they're out there, but I'd love to meet them. And I think that this feeling of kind of loss is actually amplified when you get to home games, because my experience of Vancouver was for 2 weeks, and anybody who was there I'm sure would agree, for 2 weeks I was like a rock star. You know, I had my team coat on, I walk around town, hey man, thanks for representing us, you're awesome. How'd you do? I came 9th. Oh, that's wicked, you know. Thanks for representing us. You're a rock star. And then I came home. People say, hey, you know, oh, what'd you do? I did skeleton. Oh, how'd you do? 9th. Oh, really? No, that's too bad. That's the difference between at the games and home. So it was very kind of like, what do you mean that's too bad? Like, I mean, and not everybody knew my story, and I had all these reasons in my mind why, well, real reasons why I didn't do well, and I couldn't get out of bed without, you know, I could barely stand up, and I had to push the sled. But it was very interesting to feel that difference. And while the country is still very, very proud of the fact that I represented them, the only people that, from my perspective, were getting consideration or love were the medalists. And again, that's just a kind of a real situation. And I've lived both sides of that now. I've lived the Olympic medal come home world, and I've lived the came 9th, came home world. And they're very, very different, obviously. I highly recommend the medal world because it's way better than the non-medal world. However, so as I was saying, I would plan better for year 5 of the quad, and I would do that in such a way that when I exited my sport, I gave myself a 6-month or 9-month or ideally at least a year's buffer of finances, and I would do it through making better sponsorship agreements and extending it beyond the day. You know, we always think our sponsorships and the people that sponsor us think, well, the minute your event is over, your sponsorship is done. If I was to negotiate a sponsorship deal now, I would say, yeah, but I can give you all this service. I'm going to have way more time. I can service you better. I can do all this stuff for you. So let's extend it 6 months or 9 months or a year. And that would create a financial comfort zone barrier or security blanket for me. You can do it through like residual incomes. You know, there's ways to get residual incomes. Now, residual income generally takes money to create, but you can, you know, buy a house and get rental income. There's network marketing businesses. There's investments. There's savings. There's annuities. There's ways to create a financial security blanket and buffer for yourself, and I think it's really important. So two things I would do. I would create this financial buffer so that I had the time to heal and recover mentally and physically. And then what I would recommend you do is give yourself a couple of weeks, obviously, after the games to kind of download and get back into real life. But then go get a job. And I say go get any job. Make sure it's part-time and make sure it's in something you absolutely love to do that has absolutely nothing to do with your sport. For me, it would have been, again, hindsight 2020. I should have gone and gotten a job part-time working at a golf course. My favorite thing in the whole world is golf. So it would have given me something to do. It would have given me a little bit of income. It would have given me a purpose to get out of bed that day. And I think it would have helped me heal mentally a little bit faster. Just like we were saying earlier with someone, if you pull a hamstring or blow a knee, if you come back too soon, if you try and get back in the game too soon, it's just going to take you longer to heal and longer to get back to full capacity. It's the same thing mentally after a games, because for me, my family situation, my wife is supporting us, and money's really tight and stuff. So I was pushing myself to get back in the game in a way that was too intense for me, and it's definitely prolonged the period of time that I've been mentally damaged. So I think you get my point. Get a buffer. Find something you love. It gives you a purpose, something to do. It's not your career. It's not your long-term vision. It's not what you want to do. But it's just something fun and enjoyable. It gives you a purpose. And if you get a few dollars for it, then fantastic. What else did I say? Another thing I would mention is that one thing I realized after this whole thing is that my team is a lot bigger than I thought it was. And I always thought of my team as the people that are directly around me, like my coach and sports psychologist and my trainer and all these people. Like, that's my team. But our teams are way bigger than we realize. Our family and our friends and our employers, Canadian people in general. I mean, put your team to work for you and tell your team how you're doing and get their help. And if you're feeling bad, ask for help. If you need help financially, ask them to help. Don't necessarily ask them for money, but say, hey, I'm looking for a way to make a few extra dollars. Like, really leverage. We're talking a few times about that this weekend. Leverage what you have and leverage your abilities and leverage your team and leverage your environment to work for you. To compete well anywhere, whether it's at home or away, to compete well, you're going to have, in my opinion, 3 areas that are really, really settled and really managed well. Family, finances, and then your sport considerations. You definitely want to manage your family well. Yeah, there's going to be ticket requests and all that stuff if it's a home games, but outside of that, just make sure that the issues in your family are cleaned up well in advance of the games. If there's some tension between you and your mom, talk about it. Get it out in the open. If there's, certainly for me, one of the worst things that happened to me prior to Vancouver was I had a huge blowout at Christmas with my family. And it really affected me mentally enough, just that little bit of stress. These little bits of stress, because we're already under a great deal of stress, these little extra kind of bricks on the mental brain it dipped me down, and it affected my performance because it was just that little bit too much. It was a straw on the camel's back type of thing. So I could have dealt with that issue much earlier, and it wouldn't have been an issue at all. So deal with your family. Make sure everyone is in alignment. Make sure they know exactly what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're going to do it, and make sure they agree to the plan. If it's someone directly with you, like my wife, I had to get my wife to agree to the plan, and we came up with the plan, and we're both in alignment, so we're both going in the same direction. So if you have to let your family know exactly what's going on, you have to let your friends know what's going on, you have to let your employers know what's going on, so that everyone can be on the same page, moving in the same direction, and it just will make it a lot smoother. And then I talked about finances. Make sure your finances are in order, not only for while you're competing, but after, because it's mentally freeing to know that at the games, okay, if this doesn't go the way I want, and I don't win that gold medal, and I don't get my $20,000 COC check, and all this other stuff, well, at least I'll have 6 months or 9 months or a year to recover from that and just get my feet back on the ground and figure out what I want to do. And then in the sport, that's obvious. So get your sport in order and train well and kick ass. So that's all I have to say.
I share a lot with you. Actually, I've been kicked from. I did not classify 1 year for the team. Did go through a severe depression as well. What happened is we identify ourselves as I'm part of the Team Canada. So when that doesn't happen, I was like nobody. What I realized not that long ago is most of people around me, they don't care I'm on national team or not. They like the person we are, and that's what you have to go back through, the base. I think as an athlete, we have incredible life. Nothing is normal about our life. We travel, we train, everything's excessive when you're an athlete, right? We train excessively, we travel, we don't have average 9 to 5 daily work, so it's very difficult to do the transition. Absolutely agree with you. I think I agree with Jeff again, we have to put our eggs in different baskets, what is very hard to do because our focus is like the game or this and that. So we have like a window of 4 years. That's what usually athletes go. And it's true, we have to look at different options. What if, we call it. What if I don't classify? What if I don't podium? What if I don't have my karting? What if? So this is a good question. You guys can think about it. For me, I was still fairly young. I decided to continue because my passion, my true passion is sport. And I totally agree with Jeff again that sometimes we do that sport, first we did love, the sport you're interested in, you will love it first. And at one point it will get so heavy and you feel like you have so much to perform that you will not do it anymore for fun. It will be like, it gets very hard at one point, and it's where we have to stop and rethink about why we do it. Is it the right reason why we do it? Do we try to do it because we want to please our parents, want to please I don't know who, or it's really something that we want to go through and maybe it's just a difficult time in our life and we're overwhelmed that week or that month, sometimes could be a year. It's not always easy. I think we have more and more resource as athletes. We have psychologists, we have nutritionists, we have a better team, I think, around athlete than when I start doing high-level sport in '92. The sport system improved a lot. I'm a Paralympian, never been Olympian, fortunately I don't see well. So financially for us, it's always been extremely difficult. We don't get a bonus when we get a medal. We don't have much attention in the media because we're disabled. So our sport is under, like, people don't really know. So it's extremely difficult for us. So most of Paralympians need a full-time job to be able to represent our country. It's a big challenge. Find a job, especially if you have a disability. Not a lot of people want to give you a job to start with because you're blind or in a wheelchair or I don't know what disability people have, but you know, it's difficult. Plus training full-time because we have to train just as much as able-bodied if we want to be on the top. So extremely demanding, but it's doable. For me, for competing in Canada, I see it as an advantage, and I did see a lot of my teammates get totally distracted by it. It was my third game, so my first game was in Sydney. We get there, it's team sport. For me, team sport and individual sport, I feel more relaxed when it's individual, because I'm like, okay, if I screw up, it's because of me, and if I do good, it's because of me. Then with the team sport, I was like, if I screwed up, I let down the whole team. And that was very tough for me to handle, the team pressure. So when we went to Sydney, we're nobody. We are the last team who get in, where Canada is nobody at that sport, and we came back with the gold. Woohoo, big hero, big deal, big cloud for a lot of months. Life was great. Go to Athens, you're at the top, everybody wants your spot. It was totally different atmosphere. Way more stress, because when you're not at the top, it's easy you have more chance to go up, but when you're at the top, it's easier to go down. And those games was very demanding for me. I did not enjoy them. I did not have any pleasure because it was so much pressure and everything else. So when I did see the chance to go to Vancouver, I'm like, oh wow, what's gonna happen there? We're in Canada, all the attention's on us, you know, on the podium, this and that. We know they invest money, you're better to do good. And I look at it and I step forward and I say, you know, all right, but the main point why I'm doing sport is because I like the sport. I like to compete and I like to go faster or be better as an athlete. And this is the real reason why I do it. That it's the game or not today that you have like, I don't know how many people was at the ski event, but it was a lot of people. That usually nobody come watch us. I say don't let that distract you. Just have fun. So my first race was a slalom. The start is not very high, so we totally hear the crowd. And I'm on the start gate, and I kind of get white and petrified inside. And I look at Lindsay, who's guiding me. She has to ski in front of me. I don't see the gate. And I look at her, and we both kind of fige there. And I'm like, you know what? I said, this is not going to happen. And I say, we know how to ski, and we're here to have fun. We did give a big hug to each other. And you say, you know what, let's do it for us and have fun today. And this is what I focus on. At the game, everything was changed upside down. Like, you know, athletes, we like routine or those little toy, or I need those, you know, underwear, the one I don't perform. I hear a lot of different stuff from athletes, and I make a conscious effort to don't develop any pattern to don't set me off. So that way I'm sure that, you know, if I have to eat an apple but that I don't have my apple, I will not say I did not eat my apple, so I suck today, you know. So I try to don't develop any routine like that, to be as flexible as possible. Our first race was supposed to be downhill. Downhill is like super fast. Slalom is the opposite, is the technical. So it's like you go from running to crawling on your four paws kind of thing. So it changed totally the aspect and the preparation. I see some of my teammates totally freaking out and because of the weather or any little distraction. So I think as an athlete, try to go with the flow. Like, I know it's easy, but it's easy to say. But if you're able to do that, I think in the game the most important part is not because it's the Olympic or the World Cup that day that you have to change anything. Try to have fun. It's your time, it's your moment. Never forget that. You know, for that time, if it's that jump you do or that race you have that day, just forget your coach, forget the whole family, forget the universe. Just focus on yourself and treat yourself. See it that way. I meet so many athletes that got the gold medal, and it's the only thing that the difference was that they did enjoy themselves that day. They did have fun because we train just as hard as anyone. And I think it's a big part that people forgot, especially your coach. They hate the more fun. Fun is not working. Like, don't tell that to your coach, right? Because they're gonna jump pretty high. But I mean, don't go drink and this and that. You have to stay, you know, still an athlete mind, but inside yourself, try to be happy if it's possible. Dealing with the media for me, as I said, as Paralympian, we're not too exposed to that. I never have much problem or any problem. Actually, I see media as my friend because they don't tell me what to say. I told them what I'm going to tell them. And even if they ask you a question, you can flip that question. Like this morning I did have an interview on radio, and they asked me, oh, it's too bad Paralympians don't get money and this and that. And my way, instead of going on the negative, oh yeah, it sucks, you know, what I think, but I cannot say that in front of them. On TV, so you have to be smart too. So I say, well, the movement is going move forward, and it's baby step. And I think the game, amazing legacy for the Canadian, and be aware that Paralympian exists and Olympian or skeleton, different sports. So it's always to the angle of what we take in life. You always have two sides of a medal, and sometimes you forgot to look at both. Like I say, use the media as your friend. See them as your buddy. Like, more you use them, more exposure you got, people will know you, and I think it will be easier at one point to get sponsor and recognitions, because that's what athletes want. We want to be recognized. Otherwise, we'll not do that. I think that's quite my message for now. I don't know if you have questions.
Okay, these folks have given us a tremendous amount of, I guess, base for asking questions. I'm sure there's going to be a huge amount of questions, so let's start the questions. And I'll ask Linda here to run the mic around for me.
Georgina Curling. It's not so much of a question that it is, thanks for sharing your story. And Jeff, I feel your pain, and it's you know, like, everybody buy Jeff a drink tonight. I feel so bad for you. I've taken this year off for the first time in 20 years, and I've been in my sport for, I won't say how many, but my sport's different in the sense that, you know, I've worked, and in Olympic years I've taken some time off and had the opportunity to do that. And if you know, hearing your story, it just kills me, because I see so many athletes go through that I've worked with in the past through the RBC Olympian programs. They're retired athletes, and they're trying to find their way. And you know, having someone to talk to and whatnot, you know, as you said, you've talked to a lot of them, and I don't know, I wish you all the best with that. But move to Vancouver, because you could still be on the golf course. And you could still get that part-time job, even in November.
Yeah, right.
And I watched you compete in the Paralympics in Whistler, and I have had no exposure to Paralympics, and that was the first time I've ever seen it, and the biathlon and everything, and unbelievably proud of all of you, and what a great accomplishment, and how inspiring all of you you athletes are. So I just really enjoyed watching you, and think what a great job you guys do.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry. It's on. Vivian, when you had your accident, was that right before a race? Was that like you finished one run and then you had another one to go, or? Yeah,
I did the downhill run, and the next day I did have another race, and the next day I did have the combine, so it's like a slalom and a speed events together. Need like 3 people to put my gloves. And a little bit in the video, I tried to convince the guy I'm fine, but the guys keep asking me, "Are you all right?" I'm sure if he asks my name, I will not be able to answer him. So yeah, I did have to compete after. So of course, competing with injury is not the greatest. I think if you're true fighter and winner, we all do, and it's for sure a problem. I come back way too fast for so many concussions, and I have over 20, and I'm not fine. It's after the game, and I'm still not all there. I'm very blonde. It's true, it's official. You know what I hope in the future? I see so much improvement in the sports system in Canada that I'm sure in 10 years, probably the new generation of athletes will have resource for after the career. Because it's very difficult to stop competing. It's very difficult for money, but resource and mentally and emotionally and all that stuff. And I'm sure we're just opening the way for the new generation. And I have hope.
Hi. I was just wondering if you knew of any services like a group or a website or like that helps athletes post career. You know how like people go to AA or anything like that, you know? No, but I'm serious.
You want to develop a 12-step program for athletes?
Yeah, I think that would be great, actually, you know? Like, I think the athletes don't have any guidance for post-career. It's kind of like you're done, well, off you go, you know? And I feel like I don't know if there's anything that exists out there, and if there isn't, maybe have you thought about starting something?
Actually, short answer is yes. Sorry, I'm just being depth charged. The thing I forgot to say, thank you for reminding me, is the COC puts on the Post-Olympic Excellence Seminar. This year it was in Lake Louise. There was about 30 of us there, which is kind of their effort to help us transition and give us information about depression and loss, and also they bring in other athletes that have shared their stories about how hard it was and what kind of they did to get through the situation. So an interesting thing was that this was, I think it was offered to, I can't remember the criteria to kind of get in, but there was, Nathaniel, I think, was the only summer athlete that showed up to this thing. It's all winter athletes. I don't think you have to be retired or retiring. You have to be thinking of retiring at some point, which we all are. So if you have a chance to go to it's called the POES. If you get a chance to go, regardless whether you're retiring next year or in 5 years, if you get a chance to go, because it's got amazing people and amazing tools and amazing resources and amazing information that it helps. It helps a little bit. So that's the one side of the question. The other side of the question is, yeah, there isn't much out there for retiring, and it's certainly been something even in the last 2 days, it's coming more and more kind of solidifying for me maybe what my next purpose would be, which is to help athletes get through better than what I've just done. It's hard. It's really hard. So.
Yeah, because a lot of times, you know, I've been told if there isn't a path, create one.
Right.
Yeah.
It's exactly. If there isn't a path, create one. So yeah, I would love to help create one for athletes, because I've had people kind of take a different angle at that statement. And even in my own head, I think, well, just make a goal and go get it. Like, you've done that your whole life, or for the last 15 years, you've set a goal and you've pursued it and you've achieved it or not, but at least you've had a direction and something to shoot for. So I say that to myself now, well, just make a goal and go get it. Like, just pick something. But I can't explain what it's like. It's like living underneath a blanket. It's so bizarre, and I've never experienced anything like it. Yeah, and it will lift up. I mean, it will go away. It's not the end of the world, but it feels like it for a while. So, yeah, I might pursue that, because it seems to be very common. I've had a few conversations again this weekend, and I know at the POES everybody was struggling.
Right, because I think that some athletes, something like that happens also. I've heard lots of stories of that happening with athletes as well when they're injured.
Yeah.
You know, they'll have to take a year off or whatnot, and then they'll go through a major depression because they've been pulled out of their sport, and not even by choice.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And they have no resources, and it's instant depression. And depression is a serious thing that needs to be addressed, or you just go deeper and deeper, you know?
Yeah, exactly. There's so many reasons why. Again, I'm a big proponent of life balance. And, you know, when you get injured and you have to leave sport or you have to come back or whatever, during that time of rehab and it can be some periods of enlightenment too. I got injured about 6 years ago, and it changed how I related to my team, because I had to change inside, because I realized my team didn't miss me when I wasn't there, and my family loved having me at home. So it was kind of helping me change my paradigm around that, and it improved my relationship. So that I think that injury can cause a lot of positives, but like you say, you can get really depressed, and if there's nothing else to go to, it can be hard. But even if there is something to go to, and this is what shocked me so much about my post-Olympic experience, is that my wife and I, we sat down and we looked at it. And you know, everyone's saying, you know, make sure you plan something for after. It's going to be really hard. I'm like, yeah, okay, it's cool. You know, like, I've owned my own businesses. I got 2 kids. I got a wife. I got a house. I've got friends. I've got, you know, business skills. I have all this stuff that my life's pretty balanced out, actually. As an athlete, I had a pretty balanced life. It was pretty good. We looked at it and went, okay, well, yeah, it might be hard for a while, but we'll be okay because we have all these skills and we have all these resources. And then it just like, bam, punches in the face, both of us, my wife and I. And that's actually another point I should make is don't expect that it's only going to be hard for you if you're in a relationship. Because my wife, because we had gotten really in alignment on where we were going and what I was trying to do, and she was helping me and all that, my injury and my loss and the circumstances around it affected her as much, if not more, than it affected me. So, you know, you have a husband and a wife both in the same house, depressed at the same time. It's a really fun place to live. So that just kind of adds to it, and it just makes it a little bit harder. So, you know, if you don't have that one person kind of buoying you up, it makes it even harder. So, as I say, there's hope and there's resources, and yeah, maybe we need to do a better job.
I wanted to add something to the POES. It's a Post-Olympic Excellence Series. I have to explain the acronyms all the time. Yeah. I understand the summer had those similar meetings, and I was at those with Jeff, and I found them really helpful. But what I want to advocate for is the fact that they're the Post-Olympics Excellence Series, but not every athlete gets to go to the Olympics. And I was an anomaly there, and no one knew it. I was accidentally invited because I ended up not qualifying at the last moment, and I was an alternate, so essentially a non-Olympian. So I was out of 100 athletes there, or whatever it was, 60 athletes, I don't remember how many there was. I was the only non-Olympian. And so I felt a little odd or embarrassed or ashamed or whatever you want to call it to be there. But the programs that they offered I found really helpful, and also really pissed off that I was accidentally invited, because I felt like there's a lot of athletes in my shoes that didn't qualify for the Olympics, and they're going to be retiring, and the transition is going to be the same, if not harder, because they potentially had more disappointment, or at least similar disappointment, but they don't have the clout, they don't have the resume, you know, Olympian. So the advocacy part is, I think, for what it's worth, athletes might want to have a position or have communications with the COC when they discuss these post-Olympic excellence series or extended training for transitioning athletes. Don't just focus on the Olympians, focus on all of the sports as well.
And I mean, you have so much we can do for athlete. Imagine you're a teenager, you're just growing, and you try to make the national team, and you get cut. How hard that could be, or just a provincial team. Like I think, however the level you reach, I think when we get not select, it's a very hard, and we all take it personal. We're human. Huh? I think the biggest problem that we do, and we still do that if we're not Olympian or doing sport, is we have a tendency to define who we are by what we do. So it's, if you're a banker and you lose your job, you're nobody. We have a tendency as a society to define ourselves by what we do. And I think this is where is one of the problems. We have to start to just be someone, and what you do is not who you are. Is it clear?
Yeah, that's a good point. And a lot of times that's considered like athlete identity issues that are covered in it. One thing, there's a couple of things that I really, one, I have to say, like, Jeff, that's awesome what you were saying. I think that really needs to be commended for your honesty, and I think maybe more of that needs to be heard. I've been fortunate to go to the post-Olympic Excellence Series for 2008 in Beijing. I had planned to retire after 2012 London, and I found that workshop very amazing. And initially it was only opened up to people who were going to be retiring, and then they didn't have enough people who signed up for that or were too scared to stay, because you finish the Olympics and no one's really sure what they're doing, so they opened it up to people who are planning to retire within the next 4 years, which I knew I would want to do for after London 2012. And I'm glad I did that, because I actually think that that series should be provided before, giving you that 4-year window. And so now I've been able to use each year as a transitioning out. What I will say is, from what I'm hearing here is, and I just turned to Andrew and I was saying, we really, I think for Athletes Can, this is probably something that we can take on
and probably do a really phenomenal job with preparing like athletes, which it wouldn't apply to just athletes who are on the Olympics, but all national team athletes who are our members, and so we're providing that information. I took notes from the series that I did in '08, and I can send them to Ash, and Ash can probably send them out to all you guys. You can send them to your athletes. I sent them out when I was athlete rep. I sent them out to all of my fellow athletes for athletics, and those notes were like really amazing for like that whole post transitioning out. So, and then the last thing I was going to say, I'm doing my PhD in sports psych, and a lot of the issues that you guys are talking about like touches on like the psychological elements that are related to like performances, injuries, and like depression that's related to that. Transitioning out, the depression there, also that loss of going from hero to zero, essentially. And whether or not you have like a performance issue, I really encourage you to link up with your Canadian Sports Centre and work with a sports psychologist that helps you with planning and getting your mind, one, in line with optimal performance, but also getting you to think about like a plan beforehand. So if you do get injured, how do you respond to that? If you're retiring out or you're thinking about it, how do you plan for that? So there are resources there. It's probably not a little bit well understood. So that's all. I think, one sec, I think. Something really quick now. Okay.
With regards to the resources for athletes that are non-Olympians, the Canadian Sports Centre Calgary just put a lot of money into developing a transitioning workshop with Jason Krause, who was here this morning. And the first time it was offered, it was very poorly attended. I was there. Josh attended one before that while we were still working on developing it. We even invited one of the Stampeders, who's now currently starting O-line. But there's a lot of these workshops that our resources are putting a lot of money into and that are not being attended. So I just want to make sure that we're not reinventing the wheel. Mm-hmm. That stuff is out there. We can contact either Cara Button or the Canadian Sports Centre Calgary, Jason Krause, and I think it was developed in collaboration with Pack Sport, and I'm sure they have I believe they have a, sorry? A DECO? Okay. But they usually share their resources between the sports centers. So make sure that, and those are always available to everyone, not just retiring athletes.
That's great, thank you. I think what happened too is as an athlete, or it's very hard to admit that we're depressed or we're not, we see it as a failure or like we're weak. So we keep it quiet. It's like taboo. You for sure don't want to tell your coach or your FIDE that you might not want to keep doing it and looking at retirement. So I think most of athletes we don't talk about that stuff much. We keep it quiet, you get there, you want to cry inside, but you put a big face just because it's how we're trained to be, like machine. And I think it's very hard I know it was very hard for me to just admit that I was depressed or crying all the time or, even thinking about suiciding. It was not something I was able to share with much people. And for sure, my FIDE did not know and nobody about the sports system. And I did not call them and say, hey, think about shooting myself, It's not the thing we share easily.
Yeah, I think that's really key, is that it's really easy in society to say, when someone comes up to you and says, so how you doing?
I'm doing good. We're always doing good.
They don't care. They don't care. How you doing? Great. I'm doing great. How are you? Great. Because if you say something else, they'll be like, whoa. And they get really uncomfortable. And
or they take you and say, go see the psychologist.
Yeah, so it's... my wife and I have written a book, marriageandmedals.com, 1997, get yours online, about this whole issue of our relationship and how hard it is. The next book will probably be the post-Olympic book. But the reason we wrote our book is to bring the conversations that everybody has behind closed doors and to bring it out in the open so we can talk about it. And in that book, you'll discover about me that if you read it, marriageandmedals.com, 1997, I hate small talk. It drives me crazy. It's a waste. To me, it just is a waste of time. How you doing? Great. How are you? Great. How's work? Great. What are you doing? How are the kids? Good. Oh God. Are you kidding me? Like, let's talk about some real stuff. So I try now as best I can, and I'm not perfect at it, but as best I can. You know, so people, how you doing? I say, well, you know, I've been struggling, and it opens up some amazing conversations. You know, I had some good conversations with Ryan, and just that 1 3 or 4 word sentence that I said instead of "I'm okay" or "I'm good" opens up an hour or 2 of amazing conversation, and those are the conversations we need to have. And the people in this room are the people we can have those conversations with because they get us, because we're us. Like, oh, you're struggling after the games because you didn't do well. I get that. Or you won a medal and you don't quite know what to do yourself because you're so busy. I get that too. Like, the resources are here. We are, as I said, our families, our communities, our teams are way bigger than we realize. So if, you know, athletes can't. We're one team of athletes. We need to use each other more.
And you can have a gold medal and be depressed too. After Sydney, my goal was to go to qualify. We qualify, come back with a gold, but not really expected. Of course you want it, but you know. And I did not know what to do after. I was like, so what's next? You know, what? Because I was not ready to get a gold and I did not know what to do after. So it's not because you win that you're going to feel great neither after. It's transition.
Totally.
Terrific. Thanks very much. What's next, of course, is the hockey game coming up soon. So we're going to cut this session off. I want to thank Jeff and Gideon. Thank you very much for taking the time and the courage to share your experiences with us. I think it's